So I'm not really an ARPG player. I play MMOs most of the time, but I have around 500 hours of Path of Exile and unfortunately around 100 hours of Diablo 4.
D4 bad.
And that being said, Last Epoch seems to do a lot of things very right and also seems to address a lot of issues I have with games like Path of Exile. Let's get into it. My favorite part of RPGs in general is making builds. So you think, oh Nico, ARPGs are perfect for you. Do you have infinite builds in Path of Exile and other games? Yes, but at the same time, you learn them very unorganically, unintuitively, and you need a bunch of third-party websites. You need something to simulate your DPS, and all of those things combined just make it very tedious, very annoying, and most of the time just result in you actually following a guide, right? Well, in Last Epoch, that's not really the case. Obviously, if you want to completely min-max, you will still need to do some of that. But in general, the game allows you to play at your own pace, make your own builds, without the need of simulating anything, or without the need of looking through 50 different pages of wikis just to understand what your ability does. So, for example, this is a build that I played, I don't know, a year ago in Last Epoch, and it's just so interesting to me, so I just want to show you really quick how this works, right? You get to choose 5 different abilities that you can augment or you can upgrade essentially in your build, and it's very simple actually. You click on an ability and there's a skill tree. Now that might seem a little bit overwhelming to have 5 complete skill trees for each ability that you have, but it's very intuitive and during the leveling process also makes sense. So for example, for my main damage ability, here for example, I'm taking Flame Reeve deals more fire damage. Seems pretty simple, right? It does get a little bit more complicated the further you go. Here for example, Flame Reeve hits have a chance to grant you Frenzy for 3 seconds. In addition to Frenzy's base effect, it now grants Flame Reeve additional melee fire damage. And you can obviously press Alt to see what Frenzy even is. Frenzy is a buff that grants 20% increased cast and attack speed, and it cannot stack. So that's something very useful to know. You don't have to go into a wiki to even understand what this does. And it's straightforward, right? You can make your own builds on the fly. You can play through the story. You can see what you like. You can see what you don't. Can respec, which isn't a real big deal at all. It gives you accelerated leveling if you do respec, and you can get back to where you were beforehand very quickly. So overall, it's very lenient in how you want to make your character initially. Now that being said, obviously there's still a lot of things that you want to keep into account. There's a lot of different items, but overall it's very easy. And actually talking about items, also something that you don't require a third-party tool for is the filters. So if you go to your gameplay and scroll down a little bit, you get to loot filter. And well, this is something that I really enjoy, so I'll just show you this real quick. You can create a new filter. You can also import filters, just like you can in other ARPGs. But creating a filter is actually quite easy. We just take a random name, sure, we add it, and then we can add rules to this. So for example, I want to hide normal and magical items. I would just add a condition. I go to rarity, go to normal, sure, and then you go over here to visibility and click hide. Update, bang, hide all normal items. Then we can do the same thing again for magic items, because we don't want to see those either. Hide, add, done. You can also just disable this, right? Oh, I want to see magical items now. I just click a button, done. I don't need to import anything. I don't need to change anything. And depending on how your build changes and what you're looking for, it's actually very easy to set this up, although it looks very complicated. There's so many different conditions, class requirements, like there's so many things that you can do. But in general, once you understand the game a little bit, and you will over time, it's not really that complicated at all. And you can just set it up whichever way you like. There's no need for anything. And that's just the general theme of Last Epoch. It just seems to fix a lot of problems that existing ARPGs have. Now, the game is still an indie game to an extent, and the game will still have problems, and the game still will have endgame problems, especially probably. The same also goes for crafting. It's way more accessible. than literally any other game that I've seen, and it's also complex at the same time, and that's the perfect kind of balance that you want to strike. So just learning these different systems is just very rewarding and also very intuitive. It makes sense what you're doing. You have these different glyphs that do different things, but you can just simply read them and you will understand what they do. Same with upgrading these things in general. There's chances to them. I want more spell crit chance, so I need to use the forging potential up here and so on. And it just makes sense. It just feels like the people making this game kind of understood that complexity without accessibility is not very valuable. So all of the systems in the game are very complex and have depth to them, but are also easy to get into and easy to learn from a beginner's perspective. So you can just intuitively go in and learn these systems. In the beginning, you don't get showered with random abilities or random skill tree options that don't feel very impactful. All of this is very easy to understand. What do I need? Do I need intelligence with some resistances? Do I need more elemental damage per se? What does this go into? It's very easy to just start playing. You don't need like a million different preparations before you jump into the game. And that's one of my favorite parts of it. And every class is different. There's abilities that you unlock depending on what class you're playing. The subclasses are interesting too, with their own skill trees that don't feel overwhelming either. And you can just go and try things out. It's just that simple. On top of that, they also added a very interesting system regarding solo self-found and trading, where you basically have a progression system behind it, and you can really focus on those things. And again, don't need a third-party tool to trade items, for example. So it's just, there's so many different little layers that the game seems to have understood better than most, and just fixed a lot of the problems that other games have. Now, that being said, I'm just a guy on the internet. Should you be buying Last Epoch ahead of its release? I don't know. That you have to decide that for yourself, obviously. But that being said, once the game is fully released, I intend to play another 100 hours of Last Epoch just to have a better understanding of how the game works right now and how it has changed in the past year or so since I last played. You can make a better and more educated decision whether or not you want to purchase it. Although it's not that expensive in comparison to Diablo 4, it's like half the price of that or something. So definitely a game I want to emphasize that I'm looking out for, and I will make a 100-hour review just like I did with a lot of other video games beforehand this month already. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, thanks for hanging out. I will be playing Last Epoch. I already know which build I'm gonna play. It's Tempest Strike, which was always my favorite ability in the game, but it was terrible beforehand. So hopefully the new Tempest Strike is gonna be a lot better, and you can expect a video beginning of March covering everything Last Epoch, 100 hours, all the things, and I hope I can give you a very concise but educated review of the game after 100 hours. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you then. Have a nice rest of your day. Peace.